10-4. Harris, thanks very much. The big story of the day, or one of the big stories of the day, of course, is Iran firing off these 9 missiles in the Strait of Hormuz. And one of them is this Shahab-3 rocket, which has a range of some 1,250 miles, which is long enough to hit Israel. And the big concern there is, of course, oil. And we're talking about the Czech Republic, the missile defense system there. A lot of controversy and a lot of talk about that. Let's bring in KT McFarland. She is a national security advisor. She worked in the Reagan administration as well as the Ford administration. And KT, give me your thoughts on this missile test in the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, it's very serious. All of a sudden, Iran is showing us that it now has the capability of delivering nuclear weapons to just about anywhere it wants in the Persian Gulf, to Israel, to Eastern Europe. And that is a major, big, and first step. What it means is that Iran is telling Israel and throwing it in Israel's face to say, we are developing nuclear weapons, we are constantly threatening you with total annihilation, what are you going to do about it? Now, Israel, as you know, about 2 weeks ago, had a military maneuver where they demonstrated that they have the ability to reach Iran. So what this is a ratcheting up of the rhetoric, but it's also a ratcheting up of the military status.
Yeah, we're actually live here in Studio N now with KT, and we can kind of give a different perspective here. You know, Secretary Gates just came out, and he was saying, you know, the deal is this doesn't bring us any closer to war with Iran, but then he goes on to say, but it proves that Iran is a legitimate threat.
Yeah, look, Iran's on the track. They're not backing down. They've not backed down to any of the incentives we've given them, the carrots that we've given them, and they haven't been intimidated by any of the threats that we've made, the European community has made, the financial, economic threats. They're on the road. They're on the road to getting nuclear weapons.
Yeah, they really are. We were talking about that in the last hour. And if you look at the chessboard, KT, I mean, you look at Iran now firing these things off in the Strait of Hormuz. Right. You look at oil, 40% of the world's oil comes through those straits. You look at Condi Rice coming out saying, now you see why we need to have these missile defense systems set up in, you know, in Europe. And then on the flip side, you got Russia saying, oh, no, you don't, because we'll point our missiles. I mean, this whole thing is starting to get a little eerie. Yeah.
It's a tinderbox, and a match could be thrown in it at any minute, and things could get out of hand, escalate very badly and very dramatically very quickly. I mean, one thing, for example, if Israel were to attack Iran, Israel has made it very clear that it will not tolerate a nuclear-armed Iran. It didn't tolerate a nuclear-armed Iraq or Syria. They've gone in, they've done that before. If they do that, if they attack Iran, it's a very difficult and complicated military maneuver. They've got to overfly Saudi Arabia, they've got to overfly Iraq, probably Syria. Now, if they were able to attack Iran, they may not get all of the nuclear facilities in Iran. Iran's already said that in retaliation it would go after the Straits of Hormuz, which, as you just pointed out, is a very narrow area. It's 21 miles wide. The lanes that the ships go in are only 2 miles wide, and that's 40% of the world's oil. You could see oil, I mean, $5 a gallon gas would be a bargain.
Yeah, well, oil's already up a buck something today, and then you kind of go back to the whole thing where you got the dichotomy of a presidential campaigns here. You got John McCain and Barack Obama giving very different responses. John McCain saying, this is why we need missile defense. This is why we don't unilaterally negotiate, or not negotiate, we don't unilaterally talk with Iran about this. And Barack Obama saying we need direct, aggressive diplomacy, still saying we should talk about this.
Well, what we've seen in the past, Nixon administration, Reagan administration, when you negotiate with an enemy or an adversary, you better have some chips in your bag when you're going to play that game. You're not going to negotiate just and charm people out of it. You've got to have something you offer them, and significant things. We did with Russia and the Soviet Union, we did with China. We don't have a lot of that leverage right now. Iran is an oil-rich country. They don't really need us for much.
And I've got 10 seconds left. Do you see any kind of conflict in 6 months, a year, or 2 years? This thing is brewing. Does it come to a head in 6 months?
I don't know about 6 months. It comes to a head within 2 years, because by then, Iran will have reached the nuclear tipping point.